President Trump is unfazed by the legal challenges he's facing as he fights to throw out terrorists and migrant gang members from the country. Trump remained firm in his criticism of the federal judge who blocked his use of the Alien Enemies Act.
But many people have called for his impeachment, the impeachment of this judge. I don't know who the judge is, but he's radical left. He was Obama appointed. And he actually said we shouldn't be able to take criminals, killers, murderers, horrible, the worst people, gang members, gang leaders, that we shouldn't be allowed to take them out of our country. Well, that's a presidential job. That's not for a local judge to be making that determination.
But some Democrats in the liberal media seem to be defending suspected criminals.
Don't they have to actually prove that those people are who they say they are and that they've carried out those acts of those criminal acts?
Well, we know they're violent people because...
How do we know?
Because, because their records have already been pulled. I mean, these people were violent.
I think that the court...
From where they came from, and now they're here illegally, so wouldn't...
One of the things that happened in court today... Well, that's what I'm saying.
Have they even given us their identity?
In the court today is that the lawyers for the government couldn't say really who these people were.
How do we know they're violent? Well, many of them have criminal convictions, and we'll show you that data, Abby. Maybe you can include it this evening. And over on CBS News, they're comparing the violent Tren de Aragua foreign terrorist organization to Irish immigrants from the 1800s.
On this St. Patrick's Day, as millions of Americans celebrate their Irish heritage, recent events remind us that the Irish were among the first immigrants to be targeted in deportation crackdowns.
In the mid-1800s, New York and Massachusetts enforced policies to have Irish immigrants rounded up and deported.
The American Civil Liberties Union didn't exist then, but if it had, it may have taken the legal position it is taking now, suing the Trump administration to stop what it considers to be the illegal deportation over the weekend of more than 200 migrants to El Salvador.
Kennedy, they're putting illegal immigrants and analogizing that to Irish immigrants in the 1800s. John Dickerson, go talk to Trump senior administration officials. The individuals on the flights were accused of kidnapping, sexual abuse of a child, aggravated assault, prostitution, robbery, and assault of a police officer. Some of them. Needs a fact check there. Abby Phillip, too. How do you know these are criminals? Well, we have the data. Bill Malugin got this from ICE, from other immigration officials. 73% of all ICE arrests in the Trump era are those who have pending charges or criminal convictions. But yeah, let's compare them to the Irish.
No, and it's interesting because I understand where someone is coming from when they want clarification, when they want any administration. Doesn't matter who the president is to show their work. That's a valid point, but you should still, as an American citizen, and hopefully a member of the media who is concerned about the state of this union, you would want to make sure that the people who mean us the most harm are the ones who are kicked out of the country and repatriated elsewhere first. So don't assume that these are the hardworking janitors and DoorDash drivers who are coming here for a better life. I don't think you can assume that those people are the ones who need to be shielded, like Selena Gomez, who was crying on social media because, her people. And it's like, also, in terms of the Irish immigrants, are we going to have a Tren de Aragua parade in 120 years? Here are they going to shut down Fifth Avenue? I don't necessarily see that happening. And celebrating violence and shielding people who want to hurt, maim, and kill innocent Americans, maybe not the best look for an objective journalist.
A TDA parade. I mean, Harris, what world do these people live in? I mean, Abby Phillip, if you find yourself defending what appears to be criminal illegal immigrants, what are you doing?
She hasn't looked at it that hard. I think that you probably couldn't get her to name much about Tren de Aragua. I mean, remember that the law officials on the ground in the state of Colorado were denying, or at least trying to deny, that there was anything going on at that apartment complex in Aurora. And now we know how many people they picked up in TDA and other gangs. Look, who's going to do the most vetting? The administration that made the promise to do the most vetting and get the worst out first. Well, you can't do that if you don't know who they are. So they're doing the vetting of getting people out of the country that was not done when people were flowing in illegally. So the job is mighty. And if they need to show their work, I like the way you put it, Kennedy, that's fine. And by the way, the Alien Enemies Act does not block President Trump's ability to continue to do this. All they're saying is just show us who's on the manifest. Tell the court before you leave. Now, I would say this, and having spent a little time with Tom Homan on TV, you know it's true. They have case after case after case, and they are, some of them, all having connected tissue. They can't put out too much public information because they have so many of these people to pick up. So I don't need to know. If a court says it wants a box check of just knowing who's on a flight, and if they have to do that as long as the flights don't stop, yeah, that's up to the White House. Trump said last night to Laura Ingraham, he's not going to flout the court on this. That's an easy one to abide by, I would think, because you have the work to show. The Biden administration didn't.
Emily, I got a statement exclusively from Attorney General Pam Bondi on this case. They gave it to me just as we were going to air. Here is what the Attorney General says on the case Harris mentioned. This is another outrageous judicial power grab by an activist judge. No judge has the authority to dictate foreign affairs or turn planes around midair. The American people overwhelmingly voted in support of President Trump's historic agenda. Allowing unelected judges to usurp executive power is a fundamental threat to our democracy and the rule of law. She knows the Constitution. She knows the federal government is acting at its height on the issue of foreign affairs.
And you know who else knows the Constitution and the height of authority is President Trump. So unlike the prior administration where we had a president that said, I need more authority, we now have a commander-in-chief that understands exactly, A, what the Constitution does to protect American citizens, and B, his authority within the executive branch to deliver on the will of the American people. This is finally a servant of the people, and the people have overwhelmingly demonstrated that they want these criminals out of here. I think it's rich that all of a sudden we have some kind of voiced protection of due process and questioning of making sure all of the work is shown. Where was that when, for example, President Trump was being prosecuted ridiculously right here in this very city? Where was that commitment to due process for those peaceful abortion activists and the elderly being put in jail? I mean, the amount that we have seen lawfare utilize against people across the political aisle where the leftists in the mainstream media stayed quiet. I think it's hilarious that now they've sworn themselves to protect criminals. And final point, we have a fabric of laws here in this country that, for example, dictate that child sex offenders cannot go within a certain amount of feet for school, that they can't have certain things. So why, if we have baked into the fabric a litany of laws protecting Americans and American kids from certain criminals, why, however, are they defending them being stayed here when they're illegal immigrants to boot?
Chuck Siegel.
Two things. Memo to CNN. A lot of times we don't know what activity they're engaged in. It could be bringing fentanyl across the border. We don't know it right away. And by the way, illegal is illegal. And memo to CBS. When the Irish came at the late 19th century, there were none of these laws in place. There was no documentation. There were no visas. So it's disingenuous to make this comparison. And you know what happened to the Irish? They got marginalized. They got ridiculed for being Catholic. They got talked down to. So they are heroes in this country. No way this should be compared to some violent gang from Venezuela coming over here.
Yep, TDA and Irish immigrants. Wow, what are they going to come up with next?
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kayleigh McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.